Hey guys, I just wanted to apologize for that really long wait for this second video to come out. And I know I said I'd do a video on something else, but I decided since I took so long I would do a video that you guys actually wanted, and that was the Deadpool mask. I actually made a whole new one and I made it better than my first one. What I did was I had smaller, what I learned was piping around the eyes, and then I got a better look for the eyebrows definition. And I got an invisible zipper on here. And there you go. Hey look, it's my head. Did I even point it right? So there's the front. Here's the side. Little dingling thing there. I hope you guys are excited for it. Okay, so we're going to start out with a blank mask, but since I already started drawing Nightwing's mask on there, I'm going to have to whiten mine out with some white primer. The first step is to draw on your face so that you could use it as sort of a guideline for when you start sculpting. But unless you're really pro at sculpting, which I'm not, then you can completely skip this step. Mine was based off of the really cool Deadpool mask by Todd Cook Designs, but I kept the nose since I have a really flat Asian nose and I needed some more definition under my mask. Then you can finalize your lines with some Sharpie. Doesn't have to be red. I just like red. The next step is to start sculpting. Make sure you use some air dry clay because you can't oven bake this mask. And the whole point of this sculpting process is to make the eyebrows pop out a little more and give the eyes a lot more definition, since these facial features are going to have to stand out through all the fabric of your mask. And then what you'll want to do when you're done sculpting all this is to smooth it out with a little bit of water. I just dip my fingers in the water and then smooth it out with my fingers. Now we're just going to clean up the edges a little bit and then just leave it out to dry. Once it's all dry, you can start cutting off the bottom of the mask since we won't need it anymore. But make sure you leave the nose. Then you'll take some spray paint, pick a color, any color, doesn't matter, and spray a couple coats on top of your mask so that the spray adhesive will have something to stick to. Now you can remove the couple pieces of paper behind the eyes, since the next step we're going to be cutting out some black fabric and sticking it over the face and through the eyes. What I ended up doing was flipping my eye patterns over and tracing them on the back of the fabric that I was using for the eyes. And my mistake was I didn't give myself enough extra around the eye patterns because I forgot to account for all the 3D shapes around the eyes and whatnot. So I recommend giving yourself a lot extra fabric to play with so you can get it to where you need it to go. Now that you have your black fabric cut out, you're going to use some spray adhesive, the same spray adhesive I use for my Deadpool swords, and get the black material on. And then you can cut a hole in the eye and make it stick to the insides of the eye so it looks a lot better. Now this stuff is really messy, so I recommend blocking off the first half of the mask while you do the same thing and cover up the other side of the eye. Next we're going to cut a couple squares of white mesh and glue that to the inside of the mask. You'll want fabric that lets you see out of the mask, but at the same time won't let people see inside the mask. So here's the pattern I came up with for the Deadpool mask. I pretty much came up with it by looking at a million pictures of Deadpool masks and deciding where I wanted all my seams to be. To determine how much fabric to use for the pattern, I pretty much made a duct tape mannequin of myself and did a whole bunch of guessing and checking. And since people have different size heads and I don't know how stretchy your fabric is, I'm going to have to leave that up to you. Once we have all of our fabric cut out, we're going to want to make sure that we have equal amount of seam allowances. This helps so much when sewing it together and keeping everything in proportion. Next up, we're going to have to cut out some fabric for our piping, which looks like a headband for ninjas. Mine ended up being about 2 inches wide by 40 inches long. And this is because I gave myself a lot extra to play with, which is the smart thing to do. For you guys, it may be a little different depending on how big or small your pattern is, so I'm going to have to show you where to measure. When figuring out how long we need for our piping, we only need 3 pieces of our pattern. That is the left cheek and the right cheek, face cheeks that is, and the center of the mask. And then we just measure along this red-orangish line that I drew out for you guys. And then give yourself about 5 or more inches. Once we have that all cut out, what we're going to do next is take our string and glue that down the center of our piping, and we're going to fold the fabric over and make it all nice and tight so that we have our piping ready for when we need to sew it on to our mask. Alright, so I'm not going to be able to teach you guys how to sew since I'm first of all learning myself, and you guys might have a different sewing machine. So I'm gonna have to leave you guys to other YouTubers to teach you how to do that. But what I can do is show you the order in which I sewed my mask together. So what we're going to do is sew our one side of our invisible zipper to this side, and then the other side to this side. And then once that's together, we can finish off the rest of the back of the mask and sew this part to this part of the mask. And then we'll have those stuck together. Next thing I did was I started with the middle of the mask and I sewed that part to that part. And then I sewed the left cheek together to the middle right there, and then the same to the right cheek. And then the tricky part might be that I sewed this part to this part of the throat, and the same for the other side, of course. And then what I did next was I sewed the left cheek to the left back, and I know that the left back is a lot longer, but I did that on purpose, and that is because the rest of the left back is going to be sewn to the throat. Trust me, I had this all planned out. And then we're going to do the same exact thing to the other side, sewing the right cheek to the right back, only part of it, and then the rest of it to the throat. Next, all you'll have left is starting to sew on your piping. And with your piping, you're going to start on whatever eye you'd like, but I started at the top of it and on the right side. And I started sewing down to the middle, down to the bottom, onto the right cheek, and then up to the top. And then the tricky part is sewing the right cheek to the center face with the piping, so you want to be careful there, and that only goes up to that part. And then what's next is the top of the right back is going to go from where you left off all the way to the tip of the little dingling thing, and then the same thing on the other side. Then we sew the top of the mask to the top of the left cheek, and then we can finish off the rest of that eye, and then you can cut off the excess when you're done. Now you can clean up the bottom of the mask by just folding it in and then just sewing it on itself. On to the final step, and that is gluing the hardshell mask to the fabric that you just sewed together. And this part was really messy for me since I had spray adhesive, and you don't want it getting on your fabric because it sucks to get off. But if you have something else you could glue your fabric on, I recommend using that. But if you don't, then I highly recommend taping it off with some painter's tape because you do not want this stuff on the rest of your fabric. It is a little hassle, but oh well, it's worth it in the end. Well, there you have it, Deadpool mask tutorial. Hope you guys learned a lot and I hope you enjoyed it. I did it all because I love you guys. Leave a comment down below, I need that feedback. Give me a thumbs up, and subscribe for more Deadpool material and other projects. And I'll make this whole damn Deadpool costume if I have to. Or you could just do whatever else you want to do. Can't wait to hear back from you guys. See ya.